Hello guys, this is Amol Khedkar. I welcome you to this video. Today I'm going to talk about Brazil as a world power beyond 2030. So this will be another video in my ongoing series about the world in 2030 that I'm doing on my channel, where I'm analyzing all the G20 countries one by one, okay? And no other YouTube channel is doing something like this. So please don't forget to check out all my other videos about different countries. I have made videos about Australia, South Korea, Indonesia, Russia, China, and many European countries as well, and also Argentina. So don't forget to check all of them out. Okay. So and before we get started, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel, because this is the only channel that is doing something like this. So you really don't want to miss out on any of this. So let's get started. So this is an article from GT 2030 project. Okay, so Global Trends 2030, and the title of it is, as you can see, Aside Brazil as a World Power Beyond 2030, Geographic, Economic, and Military Dimensions. Okay, so it will analyze what Brazil will look like until 2030 and what will be the role of Brazil after 2030. Okay, so Brazil as such is the largest economy in the Latin America, right? So it is also the largest country by land area in South America. Okay, so Brazil is definitely a major player on the world stage, no doubt about that. It is also a member of the BRICS countries: Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Okay, so Brazil is definitely a powerhouse. To be honest with you, it's a South American powerhouse, and many countries in South American continent depend on the economy of Brazil. So and also Brazil is a part of G20 countries along with Argentina in South America. Okay. So let's get started. The Global Trends 2030 report depicts three hypothetical future worlds and examines their implications. Okay, roughly put, in one, the US turns isolationist and major conflict breaks out in Asia. Okay, so in the first scenario, US turns isolationist, as you are seeing it right now. Trump has pulled US out from many international treaties, and major conflict breaks out in Asia. Between whom? Between China, India, and Russia. Okay, so in another, the US and China build a productive working relationship around which the global economy flourishes. So the second scenario that they highlight here is that US and China build a productive working relationship, which in my honest opinion is not the case right now, and I don't think it will be like this in the near future. That's just my opinion, okay? In the third, global institutions falter and major powers become the focus of regional economic blocs, hindering the world economy and technological cooperation. Okay, I think this is the most likely scenario, to be very honest with you, because I made a video about this where I talk about a new world order after coronavirus. Okay, so if you have not checked it out before, go and look at that video, and I explain exactly this. Okay, I explain that the era of globalization is over right now, and we are entering an era of regionalism. Okay, so that is what it the third scenario looks like, where it says global institutions falter. So like global institutions like WHO, UN, then what, UNESCO, all of these institutions falter, and major powers become the focus of regional economic blocs. So major powers become the focus of regional economic blocs. What that means is that, as I highlighted in my New World Order video, US will be the major economic power in North America, Brazil in South America, Germany in Europe, Nigeria and South Africa in Africa, and India, China, and Russia, and Japan and Indonesia in Asia. Okay, so that's exactly what I talk about in that video. So don't forget to check that video out. Hindering the world economy and technological cooperation. So that this third scenario hinders the world economy and also technological cooperation between different countries. Okay. In each of these scenarios, Brazil is largely a passive player. So either of these three world outcomes, Brazil is just going to be a passive player. That's what this article says. Okay. And I do agree with major parts of this article. That's why I'm bringing this article to you guys. Okay. It inherits a global political, economic, and security environment that derives from other players, particularly China and the US, and events like an Asian pandemic or international armed conflict in the Middle East. Okay, the closest Brazil comes to our online casino playing an important role is one mention of a possible future in which Brazilian diplomacy brokers a peacemaking agreement between China and the US and is rewarded in turn a seat in the UN Security Council, which is absolutely impossible. Okay. Let me be very honest with you. Brazil is not even in a position to to sell itself on the world stage. Forget about brokering a peace deal between China and the US. Okay, Brazil does not even stand a chance in doing that. So definitely that's not going to happen. And getting a seat at the UN Security Council, that's just completely out of scope, at least in my opinion. Okay, I agree with this view for two reasons. The author of this article is saying for two reasons. First, Brazil's geographic isolation from the world's key economic and geostrategic zones. Okay, Brazil is very isolated from the world's key economic and geostrategic zones. Okay, South America is not a business friendly continent. Okay, to be very honest with you. Okay, so as I've said in my earlier videos, the future is going to be Asian. Many economies are just going to spring up in Asia, and many companies are just going to go and invest in Asia. Okay, so look at this. Like many companies left America, but they did not go to Latin America. Okay, no country in Latin America all these companies went to. Okay, so look at Mexico, look at Argentina, look at Brazil, look at Colombia, look at Venezuela. No companies went to any of these countries. Why? Because they are usually very corrupt, and there are drug gangs running the entire countries. Okay, there are many other problems. Okay, language is a big problem. Many of these countries speak Spanish. Brazil speaks Portuguese. So those are all the things. Okay, so companies prefer to go to China and India, okay, rather than going to Latin America, and Latin America is closest to America. Okay, so imagine this. That's why I don't see any major shift happening in Latin America in the near future. Okay, so I agree with this scenario where it says that Brazil's geographic isolation from the world's key economic and geostrategic zones is very important. Brazil is pretty far off from the power center of the world. Okay, and two, Brazil's lack of global presence, particularly in security affairs. Definitely true. I mean, Brazil's name is not that pronounced in the world security affairs, right? It's very it's like an odd man out. Okay, the world does not care about what Brazil thinks. Okay, in terms of security matters, that's just not how the world works nowadays. So that is very true as well. The original BRICS countries, I do not include South Africa because it is included for political reasons, not because it appears destined to become an economic power. So this is an opinion of the author. Okay, so he is saying that South Africa is included in this alliance because of political reasons, not because it appears destined to become an economic power. Okay, so I'll not comment on this opinion. Share several characteristics. Okay, the original BRICS countries share several characteristics. That's what this person is saying, especially market size. Okay, Brazil differs from the others. Okay, that's what this person is saying. However, in a crucial way, China, India, and Russia are important to other large influential countries, not only because of their size but because they are territorially and economically involved in flashpoints of instability, countries and or regions with troubles that affect core interests of powerful countries around the world. Very true. Okay, look at what he's saying. I will just dissect a few things over here. What he's saying is that Brazil is different from the other three countries. Which are the other three countries? China, India, and Russia are important to other large influential countries. Which are the other large influential countries? Like US and Europe, European Union. Okay, not only because of their size, definitely these are very huge countries, but because they are territorially and economically involved in flashpoints of instability, countries and or regions with troubles that affect core interests of powerful countries around the world. Okay, this is extremely true. Okay, look at China, right? China has territorial conflicts with many different countries. In the South China Sea, it is conflicting with the ASEAN countries. India has been having a territorial conflict with Pakistan and China for long time. Russia has territorial conflicts with almost half of Europe and half of Asia. So definitely these are the regions that most of the global countries are involved into. Their interests are intertwined into those countries. That's why these three countries are really very important, but not Brazil. That sounds pretty true. Okay, South America includes no such flashpoint. That is very true. Okay, naturally this benefits Brazil because it faces relatively little interference from outside powers. Okay, so there is no country in South America that can challenge the hegemony of Brazil. That is very true. Okay, because Brazil is the only dominant power in South America, and that's about it. Okay, the Cold War era being somewhat of an exception, though US and Soviet interference was rather less severe than in East Asia, Afghanistan, or Germany. So US and Soviet interference in Brazil was also very less, to be minimal, to be honest. Okay, and if you compare it with East Asia, Afghanistan, and Germany, it's just absolutely nothing. Okay, Brazil also needs not allocate resources and political attention to deter or respond to threats posed by heavily armed nuclear capable neighbors. Extremely true. Okay, China, India, Russia, okay, then Britain, France, America, Israel, North Korea, all these countries, Pakistan, all these countries have nuclear weapons. Okay, there is no country in South America that has nuclear capabilities. So, but definitely Brazil does not even need to build like a very huge army for it to defend itself from the nuclear armed countries. Okay, look at India and Pakistan. Okay, both these countries have nuclear weapons, proven nuclear weapons. That's why it's very contested region. Okay, I'm a citizen of India. I can tell you that the border between India and Pakistan is literally like a hotbed for conflict. Okay, so that's not something like what Brazil has to face. That is true. Okay, Brazil's isolation from the world's critical choke points and hotspots is also a disadvantage. Okay, it is also a disadvantage because it means Brazil is an important country in terms of economics and perhaps diplomacy, but not in terms of security. True, right? So I'll read this one more time. Brazil's isolation from world's critical checkpoints and hotspots is also a disadvantage because it means Brazil is an important country in terms of economics and perhaps diplomacy, but not in terms of security. Okay, so security is not an issue in South America because there is no other country that even wants to take the place of Brazil. Okay, many of the countries are grappling with their own problems, like what, like corruption, like drug wars, like gang wars, many things. Okay, it's not that easy life in South America. And look at again the Caribbean nations. Look at Central America, Guatemala, Honduras, El Salvador. Very hard life over there. Okay, and for other powers, Brazil is a good partner to have, but not an essential one. True as well, But for other powers like China, India, Russia, or Japan, or America, Brazil is a good partner to have. It's a good to have thing, but not an essential. It's not a must have. Okay, but the world will go on without Brazil. Brazil is not a very important country in the entire world. That's just a plain fact. Okay, I provide facts to you in on my channel in a very brutal way and in a very no holds barred sort of way. And that's the reason why I like doing these kind of videos, because I can express my opinions without any obstructions. Okay, so Brazil is not an important country on the world stage. That's just a plain fact. Okay, I'm intend no offense to anybody who is Brazilian who is watching this video. I'm just stating the facts. Okay, Brazil's position on nuclear weapons reflects this conundrum. Okay, Brazil signed the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty (NPT) in 1997, a reasonable step considering Brazil faces no apparent threat to its territorial sovereignty that a nuclear weapon could be used against. There is no nation state antagonistic to be deterred. Okay, true. So Brazil has signed this NPT agreement because it does not see any nuclear state, using nuclear weapon against it. Okay, critics of the decision point to India, claiming that India's refusal to sign on to NPT was a key reason why the US under President George W. Bush announced its support for a seat online casino for India on the UN Security Council, and in general why countries with far fewer resources and far smaller economies than Brazil's, example France, the UK, Israel, Pakistan, seem to receive more respect and generosity from other powers than Brazil. This is also true. This article is very good because as you can see here, what it says is that many other economies that have far fewer resources and far fewer economies. Brazil is a very resource rich country. Okay, half of the Amazon rainforest is in Brazil. Okay, Amazon rainforest has huge amount of natural resources. Brazil is a very rich natural resource country. Okay, so and look at other countries that this guy mentions. Okay, France, UK, Israel, Pakistan, absolutely nothing. Okay, they have no natural resources at all and much smaller economies. Definitely Israel, Pakistan have much smaller economies than Brazil. Okay, so what this guy is saying, that they seem to receive more respect and generosity from other powers than Brazil. Why? Because they have nuclear weapons. And I agree, that is true. Okay, nuclear weapons work like a sort of deterrent. Okay, so no country is going to use the nuclear weapons, but it works as a sort of like a deterrent. It works as a sort of ability that a country has, and they can use that ability on the world stage to make decisions in their favor. And that's exactly what this guy means, and I think he's true. Okay, Brazil has established online casino, a type of middle path. Okay, it has advanced nuclear capabilities which it uses for energy, industry, and military purposes. It aspires to build a nuclear propulsion submarine over the next decade. It skirts and sometimes ignores online casino, its NPT ignores what I don't know what online casino is. It's NPT obligations, but it does not go so far as to build or test a weapon, a step that definitely will could not help but destabilize its global relations. Okay, so it just does not want to build nuclear weapons or get into this nuclear arena. Because it fears that it will just sidetrack the nuclear armed countries in the entire world. Okay, another related factor that limits Brazil's global presence and its influence in its lack of capacity and willingness to develop and use military capabilities beyond its reach is now to pain specialists and even some primary care doctors who treat pain border. I don't know what this is. Unlike Asia or Europe, South America is a community of countries with low propensity for international conflict and small militaries. The use of military beyond a country's borders is almost unheard of. Okay, the use of military beyond a country's borders in South America is almost unheard of. That is true. Brazil's attitude is changing somewhat. Okay, Brazil's armed forces supported the UN's peacekeeping mission in East Timor in 1999 and have supported and led the UN peacekeeping mission in Haiti. In 2011, the Brazilian Navy led a UN authorized multinational maritime force off the coast of Lebanon. Still, when compared to its BRIC rivals and even against other middle powers like the UK, Canada, Australia, and South Korea, Brazil at present and at least for the next 10 years, because it takes time to build a seagoing naval capability, has yet to evolve itself in coalitions and actions that determine outcomes in far away but strategically important regions. Okay, so even countries like UK, Canada, Australia, and South Korea, which are considered as middle powers, are hedging ahead of Brazil. That's what this guy is saying. Okay, Brazil's government shows an interest in building such a capacity, at least in terms of ships, aircraft, and other technologies, areas with obvious economic and industrial spillover effects. But investment lags in the equally difficult processes of military professionalization and modernization, such as the training and utilization of junior enlisted and non-commissioned officers. Okay, so Brazil is way far off than being a sort of even a middle power on the world stage. Forget about a great power; it will just be like a middle power in on the world stage. Okay, one factor that could drive change in Brazil's security capabilities is the rise of concern across South America over border and territorial control. So, if a war breaks out in South America, then Brazil will emerge as a good power. Okay, so as they say, diamonds are forged when they are heated, right? So definitely Brazil will come up as a world power only when there is like a territorial conflict in South America and Brazil can emerge as the sole winner in that conflict. Then Brazil can emerge on the world stage as a global power. Okay, the regional surge in drug trafficking to major consumption markets within Brazil, in the US and in Europe, has led to recognition that illegal armed groups regularly cross borders and operate in territories across Brazil. Okay, this is also very true because Brazil is not a very good reputation country on the world stage. Okay, it is a country that has a whole lot of drug issues. There are favelas in Brazil that are in complete disrepair. Look at the Rio Olympics that happened. It was a complete mess. Okay, it was not a very good show on the world stage. Okay, as long as this problem persists, there will be a demand for more capable, mobile, and outwardly disposed security forces. Okay, in the coming decades, Brazil can certainly continue to gain international influence as an economic power and a diplomatic actor, regardless of its involvement in security matters. But the more widely Brazilian people, companies, goods, and investments spread around the world, the more Brazilian leadership will perceive the benefits of having the capability to protect and serve them and the interests they create. Okay, so if Brazil ventures out of its comfort zone from South America and starts trading into other parts of the world, then it can try to have some kind of power. But to be honest with you, Brazil is not in a condition to do that. Okay, Brazil has many internal problems. The last two presidents of Brazil were thrown out due to corruption charges. Okay, there was Dilma Rousseff, right? That lady was thrown out. Now the current president of Brazil is Jair Bolsonaro, who is a very controversial person. Okay, and just look at the current coronavirus madness. That person has said that he does not believe in any of this thing. And at the time that I'm recording this video, Brazil is the second largest country in the entire world in terms of coronavirus cases. So not a very good sign for Brazil. Okay, Despite these complications and leaving aside Brazil's medium term alliance on China's economy, Brazil is well positioned to continue to rise as an important player on the global stage. The first block discussed the long term positive prospects for Brazil of becoming an important exporter of both wood and energy, an enviable position. From the point of view of resource abundance, especially when intensifying effects from global warming are considered, Brazil's southern cone stands with the United States of Canada and Russia as the regions best equipped to serve as global providers of natural resources. Okay, so what this guy is saying is that Brazil will stand with US, Canada, and Russia. If it wants to choose sides, okay, so it will definitely not stand with the eastern countries, the eastern alliance, which will be like China, India, and Russia, but it will stand with these countries because it's on the western hemisphere, and these are the countries that will serve interests of Brazil much more better than the eastern bloc countries. Okay, Brazil's isolation from global hotspots is also advantageous, okay, because Brazil is relatively protected from crisis and armed conflict that could erupt in East or South Asia or the Middle East and engulf other powers with long-standing equities in those regions. Okay, this is true. Okay, like look at South Asia, as I said, India-Pakistan border, Middle East, it's like a powder keg for conflict, and East, like look at South China Sea, right? Then look at North and South Korea conflict. So definitely these three regions are very volatile. Okay, among the most provocative sentences I found in the GT 2030 report is one that asserts that Brazil would benefit from a major geopolitical tension and a worldwide pandemic. Okay, so this guy is saying that Brazil can benefit from a geopolitical tension and a worldwide pandemic. Okay, as other powers succumb to economic crisis and conflict, perhaps including deindustrialization as occurred in Europe and Japan after the last major war, they and the rest of the world may turn increasingly to the less affected industries of Brazil and South America for their requirements. Okay, so when the what this guy is saying is that once the powers, the great powers succumb to economic crisis and conflict, and they deindustrialize after that, they will start turning to the less affected industries of Brazil and South America. But I don't think that's a very a probable outcome of a worldwide conflict. Okay, because Brazil, as I said, is very geographically far off than the rest of the world. It will be very financially it's not financially wise for many of these companies to shift their locations to Brazil because it's very far off. Okay, it's not worthwhile, it's not worth the money. Okay, from a purely nationalistic viewpoint, one that imagines Brazil as competing with other countries for wealth and influence, this scenario of global turmoil and crisis offers Brazil its best chance for maximum advantage. Okay, could it be that this type of long-term strategic thinking underlies Brazilia's flirtation with rogue regimes like those of Hugo Chavez or Ahmadinejad? Okay, so that's what if you look at it from purely nationalistic standpoint, this might be the best chance for Brazil to emerge as a world power on the global stage. But to be honest, I don't think that Brazil can even take advantage of this kind of situation because, as I said, the geography works entirely against it. Okay, and one more thing that I would like to point out about Brazil is that half of the country of Brazil is covered in the rainforest. Okay, so half of the country is not even suitable for farming or agriculture or industries or nothing. Okay, so the large majority of the Brazilian population just lives in the southern part of Brazil, like the Rio and Brasilia and all that kind of regions. Okay, so nobody lives in the northern part of Brazil. Okay, or like the western part of Brazil. Good fodder for speculation, but between today and 2030, what Brazilian leadership should focus on is strengthening various internal institutions and policies that underpin a democracy's strength and vitality, including the judiciary, the education system, the defense ministry, and the armed forces. So, definitely all these four things are in complete disrepair in Brazil. As you can see right now, Bolsonaro has recently just fired the health minister and the law minister. Okay, like in the coronavirus crisis, Bolsonaro has fired the health minister. Can you imagine this? Yeah, this is Brazil is pretty chaotic. Okay, so judiciary, education system, defense ministry, and armed forces are all in complete disrepair in Brazil. Okay, for a country as large and rich in resources as Brazil, more efficient and reliable domestic institutions would go far to ensure its greatness. Foreign policy will come along. Okay, so as you can see here, for a country as large and rich in resources as Brazil, more efficient and reliable domestic institutions would go far to ensure its greatness. So just the domestic things are not in place in Brazil right now. Okay, forget about the foreign policy, just the domestic institutions are not in place right now. Okay, so who is this guy? He's the director of the Latin American Affairs Program. So pretty reputed and pretty legitimate article that I presented in front of you. So as I pointed out in my previous videos, Brazil is in a pretty good situation if you compare it with countries like Australia, Japan, South Korea, Russia, or Italy or UK, right? Because all of these countries are facing a sort of demographic transition. They are facing like aging of the population, and people, old people not dying and young people not being born. But Brazil is a Latin American country. They also have a very low replacement rate. Okay, the fertility rate is quite low in Brazil, but it's not that severe as in all these countries. Okay, because Brazil is not a rich country; it's a developing economy, and there is a whole lot of corruption. There are many people who live in favelas. If you know what favelas are, there is a good film called City of God. You can look at that film, and that will tell you what favelas are and how life in Brazil is. Okay, so in my opinion, by 2030, I can see Brazil emerge as a regional power in South America, because definitely it's the largest economy and is the largest country by land area in South America. So definitely no other country will be even able to challenge Brazil's supremacy, but it will not emerge as a global power. Okay, definitely not. And I agree with this guy's prediction that among the other three countries, like Russia, China, and India, Brazil is not a that big economy as any of these three countries, and it is not a global power on the world stage. Okay, so Brazil will remain a regional power by 2030, but it will definitely not be able to project its influence outside of the South American continent. So that's my analysis about the country of Brazil and how it will look like by 2030. If you liked my analysis, please don't forget to like and comment and share on this video. Okay, and also subscribe to my channel so that you can get daily updates from my side of the world. And also check out my other videos in this series where I analyze each and every country in the G20 group. Okay, thank you. Have a good day. Bye bye.